know, even after all these years, the Carrack still looks hella impressive. So, hello guys, Mr. Jaeger here, and welcome to Anvil Day. The timing on that was beautiful. Thank you. I'm not going to be able to get that again. So yes, welcome to Anvil Day, one of my more favorite military ship manufactorums, and well, what a nice day it is to have it. So, yeah, we've done the Alien Day, so now it's only the good things. Well, up until after Argon Astronautics, we've got Crusader. Oh, is it like a Crusader Day? I think it's like Anvil, Argo Astronautics, and I think Crusader Day, or MISC. Hopefully it's Crusader Day. But yes, so today we celebrate Anvil Aerospace, the in-law main producer of the UAE's armed forces or armed fleets, and also a pretty awesome having a pretty awesome array of vessels to have on display. Today's venue is going to be primarily focused on the right hand side, as per usual. As the usual routines apply, we're going to be doing what we normally do: roll around the center, and today we're probably going to roll. I think we'll go up and then to the low so you can get to enjoy the wonders of these particular vessels. We've also got, of course, some new ships in the wings, as it were, down there. But we've also got a ground vehicle inside this point, and also a new ship, which I was completely unaware of, the C8R Pisces, which is this red one over here. So, yeah, we've actually got our work cut out for us today. So, without further ado, let's get started. So, without further ado, there we go. So, today we start our adventure in the IAE 2952 Anvil Day with the Terrapin. So, the Terrapin, for those who don't know, is a deep space armored recon ship. So, in a sense, the main intention for this thing, sadly, there's no real function for this vessel at the moment, which is a real big shame, because I very much like this style of ship. Like, I like the design of the ship. It looks so cool. It's low profile and VTOL capable thrusters, which, to be honest with you, I have a bit of a soft spot for VTOL capable thrusters. It's rather dark and foreboding in here, but really, it's just a combat vessel with sadly no use at this time, but it will have one fairly soon. So the main purpose of this vessel is quite simply a deep long-range reconnaissance vessel. It's not designed for combat. Its main goal is to get into the fight, or get into enemy low territory, or just scouting. You can just have them for scouting. And basically, that chair in the middle of its bay transmits information, which then gets sent back to the UAE fleet, which then either sends reinforcements or tells the ship to get the hell out of Dodge to try and escape with valuable information. So overall, a really nice looking ship. I have not got one, but it is available to fly, it's available to try out. And again, it's a really nice looking ship. In terms of defenses, it's got fuck all. It's very much not able to defend itself. It's got two size 1s at the front, as you can see, but even then, these are floating? It almost doesn't look like they're attached. No, to be fair, this vessel is quite the looker, but almost nothing to defend itself with. I do hope in the near future we do start getting some data streaming options, like getting physical data from one side to the other, but that does probably require us having pyro in the game. So, hopefully we can use this for long-range reconnaissance. But still, a very nice looking ship, and if you're a fan of Anvil ships and you want to have it for one of your collections, a very notable one. So we go from rather a notable and sadly useless vessel to one of the more productive and useful vessels in Star Citizen for Anvil Aerospace, and arguably a very much solid choice for a starter ship. I am, of course, talking about the C8 Pisces. Now, there's now technically 3 versions of the ship. You've got the Pisces, which is dedicated to going only onto the Carrack, which rather conveniently, and very well timed, I may add, is opening up its cargo bay. You've got the C8 Pisces Expedition, which comes with its own quantum drive and some limited space, which, to be fair, Yeah, so basically we've got this particular version of the C8 Pisces, which, well, yes, so the C8 Pisces is basically the bog standard edition, which is more of a parasite craft that goes from the Carrack to the ground. Then you have the Pisces Expedition, which of course has whiter paint job, more, and has four weapon hardpoints instead of 2. So it's a vessel that's just a little bit more independent and does give any new player an opportunity to do some funky stuff, which is pretty cool. In terms of weapon defensive hardpoints, you've got it's pretty much size 1s. Yeah, it's just size 1s, unfortunately. But still, it's got 4 size 1s. You've got 2 Panther repeaters at the front, and 2... I don't know what weapons those are. I can never remember what weapons those are, which is irksome. Very much irksome. But the more important, of course, is, to be fair, when it comes to these kind of vessels, combat isn't really the thing you're aiming for. Or it shouldn't be the thing you're aiming for. Instead, it should be, oh, hello. Rather convenient person to just demonstrate. I think this is really convenient today. So not only does this vessel have, of course, a seating for 3, but also 4 SCUs worth of cargo space, which, of course, does mean quite a bit in terms of a starter player, meaning they have a lot more opportunities to do cargo bot jobs and also light transportation, as Madam here is describing very nicely. Thank you, miss, and I hope you have a lovely day. In terms of visuals, I will quickly nip into the cockpit of this thing, because it is actually a really nice vessel. In fact, I think I have one of these vessels, because it's just that useful. So in terms of visuals, it's not exactly a great, you do have some struts, and you're primarily looking up when it comes to other things. Oh, speaking of up, it looks like we got a contact. But it does, and sadly, it doesn't pass the MFD test. Because, of course, you've got these outer MFDs to worry about. You can only really see 2 of them at any one time. Maybe 2.5 or 3. Or, you can only see the 2 inner ones perfectly, whereas the 2 outer ones not so much. But still, it's a very, very good vessel and very maneuverable. I do love this thing. And there's a bit of a funny story to tell. So, years ago, when the PvP event was going on, basically myself and a friend were doing some mining in our ROCs when some prick with a Gladius decided to try and come along and try and shoot us up. Because, fun. We were very much a threat to him. And one of my mates inside the Carrack was like, oh, no, I'm not having any of this. And so he basically jumped into the Pisces equipped on the Carrack, took off, and fucking chased the Gladius pilot away. He actually made the other guy panic and fly off. And then when the guy came back, he ended up out-fighting him and out-maneuvering him, forcing the guy to ditch into the Carrack, where we then fucking annihilated him with shotgun rounds. I will forever love the Pisces for that one. That is 100% my true love. That's the reason. To be fair, you could argue it's kind of a bias, but having a Pisces chase off a Gladius is one of those stories you just get to fucking... It's one of those things I'll stay with me to the end of my days. So, this thing right here, the C8R, is a medical version of the Pisces. And to be fair, it's the C8 Rescue. I assume that R means rescue. So it looks like it's got 2 weapon hardpoints, size 1s with some size 1 missiles. So it's not exactly completely empty here. And also it looks like we have a medical bed here. Oh, okay. And a medical system. So it is a medical. We've got power plants, and then of course which it says here on the website, an onboard tier 3 medical bed, which allows you to treat minor injuries better than a med pen, stabilizing patients on their way to a larger medical facility, and there is a digital medical assistance. So it sacrifices some cargo room. In fact, it sacrifices all the cargo room for the ability for players to somehow keep another player alive, which, to be fair, is actually a pretty cool thing. I mean, the Pisces is a natural fit. Okay. So I think there was a texture glitch. I just saw some guy with a hat, and I'm like, what the fuck? I think he saw it as well, because he's just staring. But still, yeah, that's a really cool idea. I like this as a concept. I mean, to be fair, more ambulances is always a nice thing. But no, this is genuinely quite a surprising concept, but one that I'm actually quite happy to see. And it also looks pretty good. Though, sadly, because it's a Tier 3 medical bed, it's not really going to be that useful at this moment. I mean, maybe if you're someone who wants to roll around with the Medigun, for example, and you need to get someone to stabilize their wounds, this thing would be far easier to fly into combat. Or, sorry, not into combat. This thing would be far easier to fly into a dangerous zone, say, Microtech in the forests, or Hurston in some of the scrap heap piles, or anywhere on Hurston, to be fair. So, no, that's actually a pretty cool concept for a C8 Pisces. What the... Oh, it's the hat, the monocle hat, but the hat looks so weird. Star Citizen, never change. So now that we've looked at the Pisces and the really nice-looking modern Pisces, let us look at another more unique vessel in the Anvil fleet. I am, of course, talking about the Anvil Hawk. The Anvil Hawk is a dedicated bounty hunting vessel, and while I have to admit I am not the biggest fan of this particular ship in terms of flying, I did fly it around for a little bit, and while yeah, I had a bit of fun, but it flies like a fucking pig. At least when I last flew it, it felt like a pig. And I liked it, I enjoyed it, I flew it around for a bit, but I couldn't quite get into this vessel. But regardless of my particular opinion, this ship is, as mentioned, designed to be a dedicated bounty hunter with a variety of tools to help it in its form. The first aspect is, of course, it's got a couple of size 1 famous weapon known as the sucker punch cannons, which are basically designed to disrupt enemy vessels' electronics, like systems, try and reduce their shields down, basically try and weaken the the spacecraft from many angles, or hopefully enough angles for it to basically stop. And to add an additional middle finger to the equation, you also are equipped with an EMP generator. So both the distortion field weapons and the EMP should, in theory, be able to completely annihilate any hopes for the target to get away, and for them to become your prey to be collected for a bounty. Of course, this vessel isn't completely without teeth, housing some size 2 M4A cannons. How did I hit something? GG. Utilizing size 2 M4A cannons, which is, of course, rather a nice little array. Sadly, they're fixed. They're not gimbaled, so you're not really going to get huge levels of firepower. But still, it is a pretty damn good array of weaponry. And once you've captured your target, you basically put them into what's known as the containment pod, or as I like to call it, the poop scoop, and you basically put your target into this particular poop scoop, take them to the local police station, and then claim the reward. Now, I imagine, and I would like to see this in near future, of course, when Star Citizen does have more features released, and of course bounty hunting becomes a lot more viable, it would be nice to see players or even players and AI being able to be traded in for a larger amount of cash rewards. Obviously, the harder part, of course, of transporting a live person versus a dead one is, of course, that probably their mates are going to try and come and get him out and try and make your life a living misery, which on both occasions we probably don't want. But still, the Anvil Hawk, a really nice looking ship. I quite like it in terms of its aesthetics, but in terms of its flight characteristics, oh no. No, I gave it its shot, and I didn't quite like it. I didn't quite enjoy it. Oh, there you go. Yes, hello, Carrick. I will get to you soon. Probably won't go do a turtle trap thing, because I've done you enough times already, but I will have a little nice walk around, because it is quite a nice looking vessel. Still, on to the other vessel, and that is, of course, the Anvil Gladiator, my favorite in the fleet, and without a doubt, one of the ships that... Well, ironically, I say all of this lovely thing, and yet I've upgraded the Anvil to another... My Anvil package, my Gladiator package got upgraded, but I'm probably going to move and either upgrade another package or outright buy this again, because I fucking love it. This is, I said, the Anvil Gladiator. It is considered in terms of Star Citizen, a light bomber with two missile racks containing... I'll look at the missile list here. So basically, you've got four size 3 missile racks containing 4 size 2 Tempests and 4 size 2 Ignite missiles. It's Ignite missiles. I don't know why I want to call it Ignite, and I'm like, no, that's not how you spell it or say it. And you've got 2 gimbaled size 3 Panther repeaters, which is pretty nice. So you take away the gimbal, and you are going to be able to do some good work with that one. Which is, yeah, no, really lovely. I do love this thing. But of course, the main attraction, if we go into the cockpit, and also it's got a gunner point as well, with a size 2 Panther, or sorry, size 3 Panther repeater turret as well. So if you've got another person with you, you can do some pretty damn good stuff. So this particular ship's main selling point is, of course, not its missile racks, but instead its size 5 torpedoes. Yes, size 5 torpedoes, 4 of them, the Stalker 5 pattern as well. I fucking love this thing. It is a very, very good ship for basically getting in and out. While it doesn't have any level of survivability in comparison to its counterpart, the Warden Hellbringer, it does have some absolutely incredible capacity to do a shit ton of damage and get out of that dodge, which is another brilliant thing. Of course, though, it's a very high definition of glass cannon, sadly, which of course is not so good. But still, if you can mitigate that and get yourself a decent armament, you've got a winner of an aircraft here. And the only thing I really wish you could do in this game, and I would love to see this in the future in Star Citizen, is be able to change whether or not you have the ability to remove the missile racks on certain ships. I'm not saying you need to do it for all of them. I'm just hoping that we can get the ability to, for example, if I can take off the missile rack here and either put another gun onto it, or I can put a gimbal mount onto it. It doesn't need to be the same size 4. It can be like a size 3 gimbal, which means I only can get size 2 guns, or a size 3 gun. But the ability to sacrifice missiles for additional DACA would make this thing amazing. That, or being able to slave the turret to the pilot as well. That would be lovely also. But I realize, of course, it's, not everything works for it. Also, check out the rear spoiler. It's beautiful. I love it. And you'd probably call me biased, and I may be biased, but fuck you, this is an amazing ship. No, to be fair, it took me by surprise. At first, I did not think much of this particular vessel. But then, when I got to fly it, I tried it, and I thought, okay, this thing feels really good. And then I took it for a proper spin, and I was like, oh my god, it was amazing. And definitely on my top 10 list, in fact, top 5 favorite ships in Star Citizen, and I very much look forward to seeing this thing back in action again. The Anvil Arrow, the little bastard of Anvil Aerospace. And depending on who's flying it, a right little bastard at that. This vessel is the most agile, nimble, and combat effective of, well, I say combat effective. It's the most dangerous in the hands of an extremely good pilot, and despite its size, it is a ferocious, it's a little bastard to fight against it. Now, I will say, hand on my heart, I am not a PvPer. I do not do PvP, at least not a lot, and in terms of Star Citizen, I am very much, I've mainly watched on the sidelines, either through the sights of a gun, as we're going as a gunner, or I've just been flying around because my internet and this fucking computer of mine won't allow me to do anything more impressive. So, I have no real experience to say, except that I have seen a fair few of my comrades in arms utilize this particular ship to great effect upon engaging the enemy. Of course, they have their own particular loadout and customizations, but we'll quickly throw through the list of what weapons this ship has as stock, and then you guys can sort of make your minds up, as it were, with regards to like how would you arm this vessel, which is pretty cool. But no, so the unique thing about this particular vessel, apart from its extremely good agility, as well as its absolutely wicked level of speed, is that it also has folding wings when it lands, which ironically kind of fucks it over a bit, because if it didn't have its wings fold when it's in the landing position, you could actually land it in the carrack. It would be so lovely. But no, I actually owned this vessel for a time, and while I at first thought I was going to be a decent enough pilot at it, I quickly found out that I lack the skills to utilize this thing effectively, and I decided after a few weeks of owning it that I needed to change up tact and utilize something a bit more meaty. Anyway, so in terms of armament, this ship comes with a remote turret on the top, which has two size 1 NN-13s, closely followed by a couple of size 2 GT215s, Scorpions, which are basically loaded little Dacker devices. However, you may also note the gimbal on the top, which means if you remove the gimbal, you can upgrade the weapon to a size 3, turning whatever kind of bastard in front of you into scrap metal, which is rather terrifying. But it does have a really odd missile array, which I don't understand whatsoever. So on the outer missile racks, it's got one side, it's got the Ignite 2, and on the other side, it's got the Dominator 2, size 2 missiles on each side there, which again doesn't make too much sense. You've then got two Dominator 2s on one side, and then two Ignite 2s on the other, which again, for the stock loadout of this vessel, does not make much sense. Surely you'd want to have everything the same if you wanted to make effectiveness, or if you want to have something different, don't make it odd style, have them all the same on one side or the other. My OCD is crying out that one. So yes, this thing, if in the hands of an extremely talented pilot, which I'm not, is absolutely deadly and terrifies the living Christ out of me. I've seen that thing go through bloody 3 ships, and all the 3 ships explode, and that thing flies off into the distance with no harm whatsoever. So, yes, Anvil Arrow, you're scary, and I don't like you. Well, I don't like you if I'm facing you. If I'm not facing you, I love you. Going from one extreme to a potential other, we then go to the Hurricane, which is a medium fighter, though to be fair, I'd almost argue it's a heavy fighter, considering what kind of weapon loadouts it can have. But still, it's one of those kind of ships which, at first, you could pretty easily underestimate, and then all of a sudden you realize, oh fuck a duck, and you're in the shit. Which is, you know, fun times there. But no, basically the Anvil Hurricane is a dedicated heavy fighter, or medium-ish fighter, depending on your mindset, with 2 size 3 Panthers, and again on gimbals, which means you can turn them into size 4s, which is pretty lovely. And for some reason they replaced the turrets on the back of the back of the Hurricane with, again, size 3 CEF 337 Panthers, which of course are the front weapons as well. So if you're a fan of the Panther, oh god, the ship is already perfect. But this weapon, well, the ship wasn't always like this. No, there was a time where some genius thought it was a really good idea to have the stock weapons of this ship be equipped with shotguns. Let me just reiterate the concept. A space combat ship with shotguns. Gonna leave you a couple of seconds to realize the issue with that sentence right there. You good? Okay, good. Let's move on. So, yes, the weapons, when they finally did decide to upgrade them, was actually quite a nice change for anyone wishing to purchase the Hurricane, because now, instead of having to spend the first 10 or 20 minutes of their life trying to get rid of the stupid shotgun shells of their vessel, they now had the ability to just dacker. But it came at a great cost. Sadly, when we lost the shotguns, we also lost the rear turret, which had originally tarantula autocannons. 4 of them. Size 3 tarantula autocannons. You see, that's a wonderful weapon. But sadly, again, it's one of those ships that does require another player. So depending on your mindset, this is either a really good ship or a really shit ship. In my eye, as I don't often play with my friends on this game at the moment, it's a bit of a shit ship. But it is really nice, and one day I would love to have this ship have slave turrets, because then I would so equip the tarantulas on there, and I would either have the distortion repeaters or something else to try and beef up the las effect on this particular vessel, because, well, that would be kind of cool. And having the quad autocannons in the background turn anything in front of me to scrap metal in like 5 seconds flat, I'm a big fan of. Definitely a big fan of these particular things. So you can access, just for quickies, it's very similar to the Hurricane. You can access, the Gladiator. You can actually access the pilot seat over here, and in order to access the seat for the gunner, you merely need to go under here, which of course, again, is like a nice little manned turret, which is pretty cool. So overall, I would say the Hurricane is a pretty solid heavy fighter. Though again, I'm not like there are other ships that I personally would take over this particular vessel. It's still an extremely effective fighter, and if you're going in for like bounty hunting operations, then I would very much recommend this vessel because holy shit, it's got the ability to not only Daka hard, it's also got the ability to share the Daka with your friends, and you kind of need them anyway in order to get this ship's full potential out, just because, well, you need the turret to fire if you're going to get the full force of the weapons. But anyway, on to the biggin. I mean, we can't have an Anvil Day without talking about the Carrack. I mean, it's the biggest and most prestigious vessel inside the Carrack fleet, and I'll fight you on that one, because it is a very nice looking vessel. At first I was kind of contemplating as to whether or not I'd walk around it, since I've done it a number of times, but you know what, I think we'll do a quick tour of this thing, because it is a very impressive vessel. So the Carrack, of course, for those who don't know, is a dedicated explorer vessel. Its pure purpose is designed simply to allow for expeditions of many a sort, from simple long-range reconnaissance runs, to exploring different sectors, to establishing colonies, all sorts of things. Like, it is designed to be in the field for a long time. It has its own particular vehicle bay that allows players to drop off their vehicle, and it has the Valkyrie stopper, which stops the vehicle from crushing anyone behind. You've also got the famous docking collar, which now works, which is a very useful thing. So you have a nice docking collar for those who don't really fancy going onto a landing pad. It also has its own it has multiple elevators, which allows it to travel allows its crew to access the various parts of the ship without too much discomfort. And here is a pretty solid cool bit. This is the dedicated cargo pod, which will eventually detach from the ship, allowing players to basically go into a particular zone. Like, for argument's sake, you've got yourself a little colony or a little thing, and you need to drop off supplies. Well, the dropping pod, you drop the pod down, and you land, you drop off the pod, and then you can take off again, or you can decide to mind your own business and, do whatever. And this very loud humming is the armory, which of course, as you can see, has retractable armory doors, which is pretty cool. And the further behind we go, we get sent into the turrets, which allow us to go into the aft turret section, whilst also mucking around there. This is probably one of my favorite large ships at the moment, in terms of scale and size. Obviously, there are going to be other ships that will eventually take over, but this ship has a little special place in my heart. I've often utilized. I even had this ship for quite some time. This was the largest ship I owned the most expensive and the largest ship I owned in my hangar crew. It's got 4 levels from the rear elevator hatch, which is what we'll be primarily utilizing to get from A to B. So as we're on the second floor, we are now entering into the habitation/medical bay section. So we go into here, we go into the medic bay, which, another fun fact, this was the first ship to utilize a med bay as well, which was pretty cool. Like, this was the ship that sort of pioneered that sort of thing. Though to be fair, I'm going to throw in this as well for those who will scream in the comments section. The 890 jump, I think, got the med bay at the same time as the Carrack got its med bay. But this is a fully functional medical bay that allows you to actually set your spawn here as well, which is pretty cool. So this is one of the few ships in Star Citizen that you can revive at if you are downed. Like if you're killed in combat or what have you, this place does allow you to regenerate, which, of course, it being an exploration vessel, it makes sense that you can do that. You've also got some other beds, which eventually will allow players to recover from minor wounds, but the big one, of course, is in the center. And, of course, you've got your own dedicated doctor's room, along with a doctor's supply room, because, doctor. Anyway, you've got your own little quarantine section here. And there's another little elevator which you can take up to the most highest elevator point of the room. But anyway, so here is the habitation room with an incredibly good-looking pool table. And there, of course, is the alien room. I say the alien room, but you know what I mean by the alien room. And of course, here's the captain's quarters. No captain can be complete without his own set of rather cool-looking chairs. And of course, a very loud engine room. Holy shit, I don't know how loud. I mean, I'm going to be editing the sound levels in the editing suite, so you're not hearing half the sounds I'm hearing at the moment. And there, of course, is the Anvil teddy bear, a very dangerous weapon utilized by thousands of years of research. Captain gets his own fucking separate toilet and shower. What do we get? Fuck all. He even gets his own fire extinguisher, the bastard. Anyway, so as we make our way towards the bridge, we are presented with an image of nothing. Nothing at all. Now, we are presented with a wonderful image of all the little components, the little fancy things with their own little cockpit and what have you. And then we finally get access to the Carrack's cockpit. Though, to be fair, this is probably the kind of cockpit that I personally wouldn't go for. However cool it may be, because you do get, of course, the entire array of ships. You do also get a very, very lovely view of practically everything in front of you, including the ground, which is wonderful. This thing is a heavy bitch, though, without a doubt, and is no easy task to fly. But if you can get used to flying this thing, oh boy, you're in for a treat. And there, of course, is the co-pilot seats and the other sort of respective hangers-on, if you will. And over here is the lift to the upper bridge, because, of course, this ship has an upper bridge. And the game is now immensely quiet, because why wouldn't it be? Come on, there we go. So here is the upper bridge. As you can see, this thing has a really cool upper bridge. You've got access to the remote turrets over here. You've got the radar systems in here. And here is actually my preferred location to fly this ship. The command station, which also acts as a pilot station. Now, admittedly, you don't get any of the MFDs that you do inside the Carrack's thing. So you will have to kind of guess on a few of the things. However, I kind of prefer flying like this simply because it gives me the freedom to kind of get a much better view over everything. And while, yes, you can't see below you, I kind of like this view better. But that's my own personal preference on that particular fact. So as we make our way towards the back room, we're now on the technician's deck, or the technical deck, if you were. And as you can see, there's a whole bunch of escape pods on the side for the crew who are really desperate to get out. And here is a number of really cool rooms. The first room is the NG's room, with his own little printer, plasma cutter, tool station, all that wonderful jazz. And on the other side is the drone room. Sadly, there are no drones in Star Citizen at the time of this recording, but we're really looking forward to seeing what kind of drones... Like you can see it, there's like 2 slots for the drones. So basically what we're looking forward to with this particular drone room is the fact that eventually we're going to be able to house a couple of drones, either be sent out for salvaging, for scrapping, for all sorts, or just doing some reconnaissance, which are operated via these remote control operator turret thingies here. So... there you go. No AI for you. It's all about the player drones, which, you know, that's going to be pretty cool. And as we make our way further down to the rear of the ship, we actually get to see the Carrack's hangar bay, where primarily the Anvil C8 Pisces is primarily going to be situated, but there are a number of options for this particular ship's hangar bay to land in. You can land in Aurora at a push. Again, you could almost land an arrow if you... you could almost land an arrow if you didn't have the folding wings. Of course, there is now the new cutter, which, to be fair, I'm not too sure if it can land in this hangar. Probably not, but I'd like to see that option. I'd like to see someone try. Can you land a cutter in a Carrack? That's going to be a question that probably a fair few people were going to ask. Because if you can... oh my god! I mean, to be fair, I think it's a bit too tall. But still, holy throne, that would be ridiculous. Jesus. Anyway, as we make our way to the rear of the ship, we get pleasant images of the starboard and the other turrets. We get to go over here, and we get to see the grav generator along with the engine room, which is a pretty cool thing. Is the engine room here? No, the grav room is in there. So here is engineering. So you get to see the wonders of the machines and the very, very big engines. And I think the grav generator is somewhere downstairs, but again, we don't have a huge amount of time. So, dart away we shall. But there's like another lower layer that goes down there into the lower floor of the engine room. And you get to see some pretty funky, cool stuff. I mean, eventually it's just more... Eventually I'd like to see this kind of thing where you can actually do something in the engine room. Because at the moment there isn't really a lot of stuff you can do in this. But soon. Very soon. And there's, of course, the other turret. Now we're going to go to the rear of the area. Because, of course, we get to have the lift access once again. And we're going to show a room that at the moment has no use. But eventually we will see a use for. And something that I very much hope to see in action fairly soon, the cartography room. So the cartography room is quite simple. We're not entirely, obviously the cartography room does what it says it is. It allows the player base to be able to sort of see the different planets in the sector that they're in, calculate the routes, make the decision on where you want to fly next. Which, of course, is a pretty funky and, well, to be fair, it's an exploration ship, so it would make sense for something like this to happen. And it also acts as a form of airlock that allows players to be able to get onto the roof of the ship. Though, to be fair, it's a bit of a risky endeavor. There's also another EVA suit, there's some warning lights over there, and there's the dedicated airlock, which eventually, of course, allows you to go onto the roof of the Carrack and then fly off into the verse if you're not careful, which, of course, we don't want to do, because we're already exploring. Anyway, let's make our way back out of the vessel. So the Carrack is a very awesome ship with a lot of potential, and it has some pretty impressive firepower as well, which is pretty wonderful. It's got like 2 turrets on the side, 1 turret on top, 1 turret down, I believe. So 4 turrets around, utilizing twin weapons. I'm trying to remember the names of the weapons. I think they're size 4, size 5, and undoubtedly has some and undoubtedly, again, to be fair, its primary purpose, of course, is not to be a combat vessel. Its primary purpose is to basically be we're out here in the sticks, and we're going to be here for a very long time. So rather than immediately die on that particular thing, we instead have to try and make ourselves as, a decent home as possible. And having loaded up the tool system to find out what weapons we've got CF Rhinos, size 4 turrets. So yeah, all of the turrets have got CF 447 Rhinos. So those weapons pack a punch, and they make any person's day rather terrible if they try to fuck with you, which, good luck, is all I'll say. These things do not show mercy to anyone who wishes to fuck around and find out. But still, that's not the Carrack's main purpose. This ship is a wonder, and to be fair, I think everyone at some point should either fly one or have one, just to sort of showcase what this ship, or what this game can really do for the future of the community, because this kind of ship is one of the main reasons why I love this game, because of the potential for the player base to have that multi-role environment. It's not all about shooting shit, it's about discovering shit. And I cannot wait for the day that thing can go into random parts of the galaxy and be like, ooh, that's new. So here we are in the first of the big rooms on the side, and we are presented with a crap load of ships, all of which are in the center, of course, focusing around the Anvil F7C Hornet and the Anvil F7CM Super Hornet. So these, of course, are quite famous aircraft, and for a long time, people considered this to be an X-Wing style ship inside Star Citizen, and this particular vessel is a very old vessel. It was originally introduced into Star Citizen around Alpha 0.8, which, yeah, it's old. It's very old. But its design philosophy is, of course, taken from, which basically, in terms of lore, this is one of the classic medium, or carrier-based medium-style fighter designs. It is a civilian model, which means it's a little bit down-gunned for the sake of, safety, because you don't want to give civilians the same level of equipment as military vessels, do you? That would be dumb. Then, of course, providing the Hornet, Super Hornet, a reason to be bought. But no, so this particular vessel is a dedicated carrier fighter / regular fighter, which had been which saw large levels of service in the UEE fleet, only recently being replaced by vessels such as the F8 Lightning, which... is a ship that I gush over every time I think about it, and it also represents a change in philosophy when it comes to fighting ships inside the verse. Because this ship is obviously meant to be a bit more agile. It's it's quite unique. It's got a big ass engine at the back. It's not got as many weapons, obviously, in comparison to its counterpart. But the other versions of the ship would, it's more about the sleekness, the design, the fastness of this particular vessel. Whereas vessels like the F8 Lightning, which we'll get to in a minute, are more designed to be heavy sluggers. The guys who are literally in there to punch the shit out of your opponent and give him a bit of a bloody nose. So if we hop into the pilot seat, we will have a little crack at this particular ship. And you can see the sort of very basic style cockpit array, as it were, with floating MFDs that require the... There we go. There's the MFD. So as you can see, there's this particular design of ship. You can see why people called it the X-Wing, because it had its very unique X-Wing style cockpit with its fancy pants dials and everything. And of course, when the MFDs came up into the top. But everything else is a fairly bog standard, kind of simple-ish array, having a few sort of things around to it. Again, I'm not, an expert when it comes to these particular vessels, but what I can say is that the design philosophy from this ship, in comparison to more modern vessels, of course, does lack somewhat. In terms of armor... Okay, apologies for that. If anyone gets motion sick, I apologize. So, in terms of armament, this vessel does have a few tricks up its sleeve. Its two wing-mounted weapons are size 3 fixed CF-337 Panthers, which are pretty cool. And it does have a large amount of missiles internally, which is kind of something for a change. It has a couple of size 2 Dominators, and a couple of size 1 Marksman 1, and a couple of size 2 Dominators as well, and a couple of on the other side, a couple of Marks 1 Dominators as well. So it's got a decent array of missiles, which I assume are under here. Again, I'll be honest with you, I've not really seen this vessel much outside of the IAE. It's one of the, again, it's an old design that I think at the time this obviously had its own unique sort of weapons and everything else, but now it's kind of been, well, there's so many other vessels that do a better job of being a fighter that this particular vessel is kind of left in the dust. The other variant of this thing, which is possibly the most finger quote popular, or the one that probably is everyone would sort of strive for, is the F7CM Super Hornet, which is basically an up-armored, up-tiered version. The up-armored and up-tiered version basically has a few bit more weaponry, with a couple of size 1 laser repeaters at the front and a piloted turret if the pilot is on his own. But since there are 2 seats in the back, if there is a co-pilot in the particular... If there's a co-pilot in the ship, then they will control the turrets at the back, which is pretty cool. But again, it's just an up-armored, up-weaponed sort of ship with slightly better components, slightly other things. The other parts of the design is gone. Instead of having Panther repeaters, it's got the Mantis with a gimbal on the top, which means you can increase the weapon strength if you should so desire. So again, it's got a few up. As I said, this particular version is, finger quote, the best version of the F7C, but there are many, many other variants. There is, of course, the F7S Hornet Ghost, which is a reconnaissance vessel designed more for stealth. Then there's this version, which I do like, called the F7M, I think it is. I think it's the F7M. It's the non-available for public version, which is really irritating. But you can see, this is where the... Oh, there we go. So this is basically, you can see, this is the more modern, up-tiered, up-weaponed version of the Hornet, which is, I would say, my personal favorite version, just because you can kind of see the inspiration for future designs. For example, the size 1 repeaters are now a little bit more subtle. You've got size 4... or size 3 to size 4 repeaters. They look like the Annihilator, to be fair, so they might be size 4s. You've also got some size 2s on the top as well. This particular version, and again, it looks so much better. But again, this is like probably the last tiering of the ship. And I really wish you could own this thing. I wouldn't mind owning a ship like this, because this would be so cool. There you go. But yeah, that's the... Is it the F7M? Oh no, F7A. My apologies, not F7M. Yeah, so this is the camera. This is basically the current premier. Well, this is the premier vessel inside the UEE's fleet. Well, near end. I think this particular vessel, at the time of this recording, has recently been retired and finally is being slowly but surely taken over by other vessels. But still, Anvil has made an absolute incredible array of contributions in with its its Hornet array. Of course, we've got other variants of the Hornet, which I'm trying to remember that version. This version, of course, is kind of more of a celebratory version, the Wildfire, which is, of course, dedicated after a particularly known pilot who, Gigi, who basically had her own little... I can't quite remember the story, but the Wildfire is basically the sort of celebrated version. I think there's like a particular pilot. Yeah, so basically, Aria Rarely, there we go, distinguished service for legendary Squadron 42. So this is basically a sort of a homage to her. And then, of course, you've got the Hornet Tracker, which is, of course, the scanner slash detector thing, which are basically reconnaissance aircraft, similar to the Ghost, but a little bit more focused on tracking than being stealthy. So there you go, the Hornet series of ships. There are far too many to count, but to personally be honest with you, the F7A edition is probably my favorite. But you can see what I mean when it comes to the design philosophy of ships. At first, it was all about the sleekness, the agileness, and then as we get further and further, or closer and closer to modern day, you start to see higher and higher levels of armament and weapons. And while there is still that element of sleekness and design, it is now starting to look a lot more like you want to blow the living shit out of whoever's in front of you. Wrong choice of words. You wanted to destroy the item in front of you with a vengeance and holy fire that's in front of you. There we go, much better. And not leave much left for the scrap heap pile. So, as we enter the last room before the holodeck, we're presented with a couple of very interesting images. The first is the Anvil Spartan, which I kind of feel sorry for, because, well, outside of racing and org events, there's not a lot of ground usage for ground vehicles at the moment. I mean, sure, you can drive around and have fun with your mates, but again, apart from fucking around, there is not a lot of use when it comes to ground vehicles, especially vehicles like the Spartan, though I cannot deny it is a very impressive vehicle. So if you're not sure where if you feel that this vehicle is familiar, that's because this is the ballista frame, which is basically the massive anti-aircraft vessel. So this edition of the frame, or the chassis I should say, is basically where they've taken off the missile launcher, replaced it with a bunch of seats internally, and allowed a crew compartment which can contain up to 8 dudes here. And then if we go over to here, we can see there's a crew for 1 extra additional. So 9 soldiers in total if you count the driver in that respect. There's also a cargo panel hatch in here, which allows players to access the internal cargo, which has a 500k stowage, which is pretty cool. It also has, of course, the variety of modern affairs, turning on the lights, turning on the warning lights, so you're like, oh my god, we're gonna die. Or if you want more subtle lighting, you can do that. Or if you want to blind people, it's like, hey, we've got the nice, happy little warning lights here and there. As you can see, there's a whole bunch of little components we can interact with, and of course, the usual array of drivable things. Though the cool thing with the ballista is you actually get access to, well, admittedly, if you think to this particular view, you're thinking, oh, this is a shit view, I can't see anything. Well, if you go to, I think it's the left, or is it the right? I think it's the right. Yeah, the right. You gain access to the remote turrets, which is pretty cool, which gives you a 360-degree angle, which is pretty nice. And it also means that you can drive the vehicle much better than if you were rolling around without such things. And as you can see also, you've got a rear hatch alongside the side hatches as well. So there's a lot of options for any squad commander in the verse who wants to utilize a ground transport vehicle. But sadly, again, there's no use for this thing right now. Now, hopefully, I'm going to be wrong, and in the next, like, 2 patches, we're going to have, like, amazing levels of usage being made out of ground vehicles. But at the moment, there is no use for ground vehicles outside of racing and outside of org events. You know, I feel sad about that, because I would really love to be able to have small, non-clan affiliated players be able to use these kind of things for missions against the AI, which I would personally freaking love. Being a PvEer, I prefer PvE over PvP, so having something like this be a thing we need to use to get into a facility on a planet that's controlled by AI, oh, I would love. Anyway, speaking of my loves, welcome to the Valkyrie. And they've actually changed some of the weapons on this thing now, which is a bit of a shame. So this is the Anvil Valkyrie, one of my top 5 ships, and the ship that I do intend on owning at one point. It'll take some time, but trust me, I'm working on it. There's only one thing that stops me from owning this thing, and it's not cash. This, of course, is a dedicated troop transport, and you can see why I love this vessel. VTOL thrusters, which is incredible. You know, I love these. I'm a sucker for VTOL thrusters. So you can see this wondrous thing. It also has some pretty impressive combat parameters and platforms. It looks amazing. And it's got a really cool hangar bay system, which, having used these things quite a bit for org events, I can tell you now, I have fallen in love with it. And it also has the little hatch thing, which is used in the Carrack, which is pretty cool, which I like a lot. It also has a turret access towards the front as well, which has enough room for 2 full squads of 10 troopers each. And there is the access to the turret, which is pretty freaking cool. It's also got 2 side door hatches with 2 size 1 Mantis repeaters, which is pretty cool. I say repeaters, basically chain guns. 2 size 1 chain guns that has the side door access. In fact, if I try and go to it, there we go. As you can see, this thing comes out, and then you can mount the gun. Though I think because this is the Expo version, we can't actually show this thing, but there you go. We also have a second floor to this particular ship, which is also pretty funky and cool. So the rear access here allows you to gain access to the top turret with a number of sleeping quarters. Then you've got access to the 2 remote turrets to the size 2 laser repeaters before making a way towards the cockpit, which I love this cockpit. It's a really nice cockpit. It doesn't quite pass the test, unfortunately, because we've got 2 additional MFDs at the front, but you've got like 4 MFDs in front of you, and it does give you, we'll see you in a second, I have to look away from it, otherwise I'm going to just gush, and it does give you an extremely versatile view of the battlefield, and it handles like a dream. VTOL thruster obviously means that you can do a lot of things in Atmo, and obviously being able to fly in Atmo with these things, I mean, it is a dedicated dropship transport. It is meant to be sent into the fray with the worst of them. So naturally, of course, it means you need to take a special care not to fly into the side of, whatever. But the other cool thing about this ship is I got a fucking hilarious PvP air kill with this. So during an op, story time once again, we were just wrapping up an event when someone, and unfortunately because we hadn't disabled the comm link, some people had a bounty on their heads, resulting in some random bounty hunter, or player bounty hunter, attempting to fly in with an eclipse to tried to kill us. And he fluffed his first shot. I don't think this guy was very good at the game, or wasn't good at flying the eclipse, because he fluffed his first torpedo shot, and his second torpedo shot was shot down somehow by our gunners, which at the time we had mostly the chain gun things rather than the machine guns before they updated the weapons on this, though, so we didn't have laser repeaters. And basically we chased this guy around after he then fluffed the third shot when I jinxed it into the ground. When I juked it into the ground, basically forcing the torpedo to go into the ground also, which was hilarious. We then chased the fucker because he thought he then decided to come in with his machine guns, realized it was a mistake, and then we chased him around the AO before we finally killed him. So I have an air kill in a Valkyrie against an Eclipse. Again, one of those stories that I'll never forget for the rest of my life. Oh god, I love this thing. It's just the best. I guess I can't put it off any longer. Oh. Oh, I want this shit. Oh. Mm. Oh my god, you're so sexy. Oh my god, I want you so badly. This is, of course, the F-8 Lightning, the most recent of ships to enter into the UEE service and was specifically designed to fight against Vandal craft. Its main strength is that it is a heavy fighter slugger. It is designed, it is literally fuck you and everything about your ship. It has stupidly good weapons. Well, I say stupid good. It's got shitloads of weapons on the front. If I were to go into the DPS calculator, I would tell you what they are. We've got a size 3 CF, you've got two size 3 CF 337 repeaters, two size 4 M6As, two size 3 M5As, and then on the top you've got a turret featuring two size 3 M5As. You just... Oh, and let's not forget the missiles as well, because of course it has missiles. It's got 4 Ignite 2 size 2 missiles. And this beautiful ship is displayed at every Invictus and every IAE, and the bastards won't let us buy it. This ship... Okay, so this ship is meant to be a reward for completing Squadron 42. It's a sort of thing to sort of say, hey, look, you've retired out of the UEE, and as a reward for your services, here's a fucking amazing ship that's just new and is just about ready to, is basically the dominant in all forms. It looks gorgeous. It is gorgeous. I want it. I crave it. I need it. I need this ship. If there was ever a ship that I said I needed, it was this one. As much as I love the Buccaneer, the Gladiator, the Arrow, all of those ships which have really good combat characteristics, whatever, I'd fucking melt them all in a heartbeat and sell them and throw them into... I wouldn't even melt them. I'd just physically say, I don't care if I lose money out of this. Just give me a goddamn F-8 Lightning. Because it's so good. And I want it so badly. Oh my god. It is amazing. I just need it in my life. But once again, CIG, you little devils, you lovely people, you fucking bastards, won't let us have these things. And you know what's even hilarious? Whenever you see these things doing displays around the Invictus Flight Week, occasionally someone is lucky enough to steal one of those things and fly around with it for a bit. Only for the game to immediately shit-can them and shoot them out the sky because they yeeted and stole the F-8. And then the developers stop that from happening, which is depressing as fuck. Ah, I really want Squadron 42 to come out so I can get that thing, because once that thing comes out, oh boy, it's going to be a wondrous day indeed. So we make our way down to the holodecks, and before we do, we obviously need to have a look at this little thing, the Anvil Ballista. This charming little vehicle with its stupidly large size, I think, what, 7? Yeah, size 7, not torpedoes, missiles, is an anti-air platform, and was actually one of the first vehicles that I actually got to sort of see when it was brand new. This vehicle came out not too long after I started playing Star Citizen a little bit more seriously. It was like, what, 2018, 2017, 2018. So I think late 2018 on that one. I think maybe mid 2018 on that one. So that's 4 years ago. So right when I started playing this game a little bit more seriously, properly, like this time, yeah, this was basically when this was new when I had started getting into Star Citizen proper. And holy shit, it is a really good vehicle. I mean, again, it's a dedicated AA platform, which does have some use, but it's a good vehicle if it had more use outside of an Org v Org event. Because we had Org v Org events, and those things were used. But again, it doesn't have that much use outside of an Org v Org event, which is always a bit of a shame. And there's, of course, the Centurion, which is another anti-air vehicle, though this time these are given the Rhino repeaters and also a pretty impressive attrition repeater as well. So this is, again, a little bit more of a modern vehicle, in a sense that it's more recently released, but this thing has the potential to do quite a fair bit of damage by going Daka on a hardcore sort of style. And I do hope that in the near future we start to see more of these vehicles in combat, rather than, and being used by the community for, well, not just PvP events, but also PvE things. Like, I'd like to be able to do a mission where you have to go into an enemy base, and they've got these things listed on the sidelines, forcing you to go to ground. So, yeah, fun times for that. Anyway, on to the last bit of our episode, the holodecks. We get to see some rather excited-looking people. So, without further ado, let's get cracking. As we make our way into the holodeck, we are presented with, ooh, an image of wonder. What is this? This is the Anvil Crucible. Ah, yes, the Anvil Crucible. This ship is really nice. So this is basically a heavy-duty repair vessel, which is meant to repair, like, mainly the fighter-style thing. So how it works is basically, ship comes in that's damaged, and basically lands in this sort of bay, and a number of drones slash players slash whatever you want to use will come in and basically fix the ship. I can't exactly go into super specifics in terms of that, because obviously we don't know what kind of repair mechanics are going to be implemented in Star Citizen. But what I can say is that this particular vessel, along with a couple of others in the holodecks, because from what I can see and what I remember of the listing, these particular ships are going to be perfect for those long distance like operations, which are basically help solidify a fleet's presence in a sector, whilst also ensuring that the vessels inside aren't going to immediately die off, which is rather nice. So, dedicated repair vessel, looking absolutely wondrous. And again, I'm that weird, sad, boring git that finds fleet logistics and support more exciting than the combat. But, you know, that's just me. I'm a bit of a freak in that regard. As we move on to the center, oh, hello. You're getting a little bit more detailed, aren't you? Yeah, everyone's all like, I can't see. Because, you know, again, CIG, put a motherfucking stair stand on the side of the goddamn thing, and we can actually see above the goddamn list. Honestly. No, of course, this is the Liberator. See what they've said in this one. Anvil continues its tradition of excellence with Liberator, open-air vehicle carrier designed with the same quantum long drive capacities. Liberator is the ideal character to put in your fleet for the frontline duty of NR operation. Yes, I would concur. The Liberator is most definitely a carrier of sorts, but I kind of would envision it more as an invasion carrier. You know, those kind of ships that, you know, the ships on D-Day that aren't the Higgins boats that would land on the beaches, but they would land on the beaches, but they would be the ones carrying the tanks and stuff. Because this vehicle, it's kind of misrepresented if you just look at it as a carrier. Ooh, I can almost touch it. This vessel is more of... Hey, look at the docking bay doors here. That's how... You can judge from those doors right there how big this fucking thing is going to be. It's going to be ridiculous. But no, the reason why I'm talking about it in this particular regard is because this ship is designed... Oh, I don't see any of the turrets, though. That's interesting. Have they removed the turrets? Because there used to be turrets. There's obviously the bridge. And there should be a turret section on the top. Unless, yeah, no, I don't see the turrets, GG. So basically, there's two decks on the hangar thing. There's one deck over here and one deck on the top. And there's an internal bay as well that you can sort of maybe land a ship in. Though, to be fair, it's more to do with the supplies and everything. So what you could do with these particular ships is these would be the ships that would land on the planet, and you would either operate as a temporary airfield for your other spacecraft, or you would have them land on the planet, and they would be the D-Day style boats that would land on the beach and provide you with allow the troop transport there, allow the tanks, armored vehicles, and infantry to disembark from this thing and fly, roll into the fields. Though again, I think that its primary purpose as a hangar slash minor aircraft carrier is probably its more popular and more intended purpose. I do also think these will probably be places of base of operations as well for initial landing parties, which again just goes to show my inner nerdiness, because just think of the logistical nightmare that'll be. Ooh. I am a freak and I know it. And last, but surprisingly the least, because if I'm not mistaken, this particular ship has been removed from the, I believe it's this, yeah, it's the Legionnaire, isn't it? Yes, the Anvil Legionnaire, which is a dedicated boarding vessel, which apparently has been withdrawn from the roadmap. So maybe they've decided to take it off because there are other more important projects coming out, or they're maybe not so important, and we're not entirely sure. But what I can say is that the Anvil Legionnaire is a very nice-looking ship. Except for that little bit at the back, though that is the thruster, so maybe I'll forgive it. But you've got the Valkyrie-style VTOL-capable drop body engines, and in the center there, you've got your nice little cutting devices, which supposedly this thing clamps itself onto the side of a vessel, and then the crew inside, well, the Marines inside, will burst on through, clearing the vessel out and freeing it from any particular occupation. This particular vessel was announced not too long ago, I think maybe a few months, and there was a real big hype about it, but now, again, the vessel's been taken off the roadmap. Maybe further resources are being taken elsewhere, maybe it's going to be utilized in the future when boarding actions make a little bit more sense, because at the moment, we're focusing on cargo, rather than trying to fly around with a sort of... Yeah, rather than trying to focus on boarding, they're trying to focus on cargo. So maybe in the future, maybe next year, we'll see this vessel come back into its own. But still, it looks really, really cool. And when boarding becomes a much more of a necessity towards taking an aircraft rather than, or spacecraft, rather than blowing it up, I think we're going to be seeing some pretty awesome displays of, well, FPS combat within small vessels at this point, and instead of it being a mission, it'll actually be a PvP or potentially PvE moment of sorts. So, yeah, I'm liking this. This particular vessel looks pretty cool, and I look forward to seeing what potential it can do for the future. Either way, I like the look of it at least. And that's it. That's today done. Well, I hope you guys have enjoyed. Anvil Day is always a day that I enjoy. I'm going to have to go get myself a drink. Jeez. I did buy myself food and drink for my character, but unfortunately, he's not wanting to drink it. Every time I put it into his hands, he just doesn't want to have it. So, unfortunately, we're just going to have to roll over to the base, the bar again, and have to go buy it from them. Honestly. But anyway, I hope you have enjoyed. Anvil Day is always a day that I look forward to because it does have some of the nicer and my personal favorite of military ships. I mean, Aegis Day is nice, don't get me wrong, but there are far more ships in Anvil that I personally quite enjoy over Aegis. And as a result, whenever Aegis Day comes along, I'm kind of like, it's cool, it's spacey, but really it's all about the Anvil for me. At least until Crusader Day comes along with its military vessels, and I'm like, or, of course, the X-Wing, when that comes out. Oh, my God, I need that ship. And a whole host of other sort of stuff. But that's for the future. Tomorrow, of course, we've got the best day of the event. We've got Argo Astronautics. We've got Kruger. We've got... Do you think it's Tumbril? No, I don't think it's Tumbril. Tumbrel's with Misk, if I'm not mistaken. But we have a whole host. I think we even have Greycat. I'm not too certain. But basically, tomorrow is all about the industrialization of the thing, which I am a huge fan of. I am very much looking forward to seeing the absolute babies of the Star Citizen fleet, the Star Citizen Industrial Fleet. So... yes, if you guys want to catch up with me on that one, feel free to stick around and we'll hopefully have the next episode up as soon as possible. Obviously, work is being a bit of a... okay, I just ate a bottle. Sure thing. But no, as I said, unfortunately, work has been a bit of a pain in terms of being able to get the time to record these things. And, of course, we've got the Dark Tide beta as well, which I'm also wanting to get some time into. But yes, thank you also very much for watching these things, and I hope you guys have enjoyed. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow, or at the time of this recording, for the big day, the big old Argo Astronautics. I'm so fucking pumped for that one. I will see you then. This is Mr. Jaeger, signing out.